if you put 100K into the stock market, 10% return, it's 10K. If you put 100K into a property as a 20% deposit, 500K. If it returned 15, 20%, you've got a much better return than if you put it into shares or cash, et cetera, et cetera. Same principle. It's the same with the self-managed super funds. So like I believe why you would do a self-managed super fund is you just want to, you've created some wealth personally. And you just want to create it in the same way. Using your super.
Totally. I always talk about it being something that's a really good stepping stone to it for, particularly for high income earners or people with a decent amount in their super already, because that is required. Some don't advertise that, but we certainly do. It's a good stepping stone in terms of going, that's your first investment property, and sometimes it feels a little bit less scary than utilizing your own cash or your own lending in your own investment property. So it is a good strategy for people that do it the first time when they're investing in property, because it feels a little bit like it's a long-term investment, so it's got a long time to accumulate that wealth, I guess, in it.
So Sweatsy Betsy, what are we talking about today? Look, you said light and easy, mate, light and easy. So today's session we're talking about, it's a very hot day in the studio today, very hot day. And my beautiful colleague over there, Miss Sweatsy Betsy Lisa Baker, said, look, we're wearing jackets today. I said, look, just it's all good. It's all good. You look great, right? You don't need the jacket on. And I'm Sweatsy Betsy myself. Check out those arms. I'm good in my own skin, right? I just showed them my armpits. Okay, today, what are we talking about?
I'm struggling to overcome that intro.
Look, you just gotta be you. Be you. We're talking today about self-managed super funds. And I think that it's something that that I just don't find a lot of accounting or financial planning firms doing podcasts on. I think you definitely don't hear Azik talking about it a hell of a lot.
No.
And I think it's something that does need to be educated on. And disclaimer, big disclaimer right now, this is not specific financial advice. It's very general in nature. We are just educating here, that's all. Self-managed super funds. A lot of people want to do them. A lot of people don't understand what they are. There is huge value out of a self-managed super fund in Australia right now, and there is a lot of compliance and a lot of risk attached to it as well. So what I was hoping to today is to talk about self-managed super and just keep it simple. Keep it simple, keep it user-friendly, and help people to gravitate towards them or to gravitate away from them based on, what you want to achieve out of your financial goals, really. So self-managed super, what's important, do you think?
Oh, look, obviously I'm really keen to speak about it simply because there is a lot of red tape and regulation and things that need to be discussed in different realms dependent on your situation. So I'm glad you put the disclaimer at the front because it is important that no one goes out and just does this because they listen to this podcast. I would always suggest you talk to someone that knows what they're doing, obviously us. But I think the other day my mum said something to me actually where she said, have you still got that property in the self-managed super fund? I said, yeah, it's doing well. Isn't that really risky though? And I was like, well, riskier than what? I said, what, letting it sit in the bank? She goes, well, at least it's safe in the bank. I said, yeah, no, it's going backwards in the bank, right? So no, leaving it in one of these, funds who people are investing your money for you and you don't even know them and they're pretty low-level training, etc.
Yep.
Oh, yeah. I said, so property, like we said in the last podcast, is a sure thing if you do it right with the right people, etc.
Yep.
So in our mind, it is the least riskiest way to utilize your super, but it also leads to the biggest growth in your super from what we've experienced and seen from our clients and ourselves. That's what I would say is my simple frame up for why.
Yep. I think it's the opportunity, and this is really important to understand. It doesn't matter whether you buy property in your own name or you buy property in a trust or you buy property in a super fund. It doesn't matter where you buy the property. The core reason of why buy a property over why do other investments like shares and term deposits or cash is purely because you've got a more leveraged position.
Yeah.
You're ultimately just deploying the same principle as if you're buying your own home.
Yeah.
You're borrowing money from the bank at an interest rate, and you've got a return that ideally should outweigh that substantially, and therefore you've got this more magnified result. And the reel we recently put out was if you put 100K into the stock market, 10% return, it's 10K. If you put 100K into a property as a 20% deposit, 500K. If it returned 15, 20%, you've got a much better return than if you put it into shares or cash, et cetera, et cetera. Same principle. It's the same with the self-managed super funds. So that's like, I believe why you would do a self-managed super fund is you've created some wealth personally. And you just want to create it in the same way. Using your super.
Totally. And I think I always talk about it being something that's a really good stepping stone particularly for high income earners or people with a decent amount in their super already, because that is required. Some don't advertise that, but we certainly do. It's a good stepping stone in terms of going, that's your first investment property, and sometimes it feels a little bit less scary than utilizing your own cash or your own lending in your own investment property. So it is a good strategy for people that do it the first time when they're investing in property, because it feels a little bit like it's a long-term investment, so it's got a long time to accumulate that wealth, I guess, in it. So it's good from that perspective, but also I think it's really rewarding to manage your own super and have that control over your super, and even just doing the administration around it. It's very, very rewarding, I guess, to do it, but people don't understand how simple it can be. So maybe just walk us through how simple it is to set up, how it actually works in terms of that structuring part, because people don't often, what is a self-managed super fund?
Yeah, so I might answer that, but cover a point first, just around like the super fund, because I agree. I've got clients right now that have gone into the super fund to buy the property first before in their own name, because that's where they had the most money, is in their super, because they've been diligent super contributors for a very long time. But I want to say, irrespective, again, whether you buy property in your own name or you buy property in your super, please use the best professional to buy the property, because if you bought the property just because you bought the property and you didn't really use the intel or the data or the buyer's agents or the advisors, it doesn't matter if it's in super in your own name, you're not going to make money. And I wouldn't even do an SMSF. So you've got to really make sure you're getting the best person. For example, there's a client that made a couple of $100K on a $450K property in 18 months inside super, because he got that right advice. And so it was so worthwhile. Anyway, to answer your question, how to keep it simple, you're a very organized person. You are. You're organized, you're systematic, you're intelligent, and you take your affairs very seriously, and you invest a lot of energy into those financial affairs frequently to make sure you and your family are very organized, right? But you're only we'll call it a 10 to 15% of the whole of how people operate. And I think that's a fair assumption to make. So there's a large chunk of people where it's too much. I can tell you right now, it's way too much to set up an SMSF, direct the SMSF, run the rollovers, handle the whole thing. It's just way too much. And that's when I would say you've got to really get the team that are self-managed super fund specialists, ideally around the whole process, to do a lot of the work for you. And yes, it comes at a cost, and it's not necessarily a cheap cost, but it's done right, and those compliance risks are removed. And I think that is so critically important. So you gotta not expect to take this all on yourself. Okay, some people can, but most can't. And I would say you can't also do one of these things with a couple $100 in the bank. Like red tape right now from ASIC is like at least $500K in respective super funds. So, for example, yourself and your husband, you'd need $500K combined in your respective industry funds before you could combine that in a super fund based on ASIC, and you wouldn't be able to get advice until you're at least at around those guidelines and limits. But right, if you were someone like yourself that was super savvy and you really wanted to do this, then it's up to you to decide. It's not up to anybody else to decide. So again, there's a bit of a massaging out in this to keep it simple. I think you got to have the right people in your corner helping you and guiding you. You got to get the right advice, financial advice, financial planners, etc., to guide you on this stuff. And if you're much less than what you need, but you really want to do it, you gotta be liaising with the buyer's agent, the broker, the accountant, and you've got to take responsibility for executing and taking responsibility for it.
100%. I think what you just said there was so important, because what we do see is we see a lot of people go out and just randomly get an SMSF through some random organisation that might just pump them out. And then they forget that there's actually, annual tax returns required, annual audits required. They've obviously got to figure out where they're going to invest this money then, what sort of property, who's the buyer's agent. They need to get lending. Lending is harder in an SMSF. So there's all these little things that need to be taken care of. Whereas if you come to an organisation like ours or any organisation that's structured like ours, where all of that is in-house, you've got your financial advisor, you've got your accountants, you've got your brokers, you've got your buyer's agents, you've got the whole team there. That is what I would always recommend. I would not recommend going out and just pulling the people in randomly because what you'll find is you end up with a half-assed SMSF set up with money sitting in the bank 100%. And making you zero going backwards.
100%. They speak different languages. It's like grabbing people from different countries and putting them together and going, hey, I need you guys to talk this out, and they don't speak the same language. That is it. And not to plug our own business, right, but to plug our own business. The benefit is exactly what you said, right? We have buyers agents specializing in self-managed super fund acquisition. We have brokers, some very great brokers that know how to do the lending. I had a broker in our wheelhouse that we trust and know and love. LVRs are changing all the time, and he's up to scratch with them. A couple of years ago, it was a 60% loan you'd get in a super fund. Then it was 80% effective a couple of years ago. Then he's come out and he's found these new products where it's up to 90%. So the point is he's specialised in the lending, and the buyer's agents are specialised in the product, and we're specialised in the structuring and what we can advise on and what we can't advise on. And if we can't advise on it, like pretty much educating you on how you're going to be able to do it yourself if you desire to do it. So you're absolutely right. You can't be bouncing around to different places because this thing will cost you a bomb to do. And you likely won't do it properly. And again, back to my point before, the first thing is if you're going to do it and you're motivated to do it, it's why you're motivated. And it would be around the property ROI that's attributed to property and its tangibility. And then you would be making sure you got really good people buying you really good product. And then you make sure you got these other partners around it.
Yeah, 100%. And it's never about plugging. It's about the fact that we're passionate and we've seen it go wrong. And it's someone's future. It's someone's retirement. And I spoke about the guy I met who'd lost all of his super, I think circa 300,000 because of some really crappy advice. And I watched this guy now grinding it out day to day to try and bring some super back up because he lost all in a bad investment. So it really is something that is not to be dabbled in. It's something you need to do right. And that's why we wanted to talk about it today, because it can be so beneficial, but it could be done incorrectly and be so detrimental if it's done through the wrong people. Something I always love talking about, because I find it to be such an eye-opening experience when people do hear about this way of working when you've got a business and you need a commercial property and you've obviously got enough to start up a self-managed super fund. And we've had a few clients that have done this really, really well, where they've utilised their self-managed super fund to purchase a commercial property, which is then rented by the business. Talk about a few of the stories that you've seen with that, because I think that's a really great strategy to utilise.
It's a great question. It's a great strategy, and it's a great strategy that needs context as well, because it is spruiked and it is advertised everywhere right now, especially on social media, that the best benefit of a self-managed super fund is where you buy the property and you lease it back to the business. It's a huge strategy, and it's got so many flaws to it, right? The benefit is, yes, if this was my space right now, my office, we'll call it, right? I can buy it in my super and then my business can pay the rent. Sounds like a great strategy. But here's the big thing, right? Let's say this commercial premises or this office is never really making a lot of money in terms of capital growth, then I've just misused my wealth and my super for a tax benefit. And big thing here is never do things for a tax benefit. We do things for a return on investment. The tax benefit comes just as a part of it. So where I've seen this work super successfully, and I had this conversation yesterday with a client, one of our great clients, you know who I'm talking about, and he's like, it is exactly that. You know what? His name's Paul. He wouldn't even mind us saying, great guy. You're going to meet him in the next podcast.
He's our favourite client.
Paulie, we're talking to you. He's coming on the next podcast. 2 weeks' time. Anyway, he said to me, he goes, I've got this office space and he's growing. Business is growing so much. I've got this office space. I really want to buy it in my super. His super's been doing amazing the last couple of years. He goes, I'm really excited. And he said, what should I do, Ryan? Should I buy it? And I said, Paul, what do you think I'd tell you to do? And he was doing this and don't go residential, don't go commercial. And I was like, Paul, I wouldn't say that. He goes, oh, okay, what would you say? And I said, well, what I'm going to say is what I'd say. And what I'm saying is, it doesn't matter whether you go resi, it doesn't matter whether you go commercial, you need to adhere to the same principles you would, irrespective of what structure it was, what type it was. I said, speak to your buyer's agent, understand if it's good property, understand the market, understand if that commercial property is going to go up, at least compete with residential, and whether it's a good investment, irrespective of its type. Yep. He said, that's great advice. I said, then what you do, if you tick those boxes and you negotiate on a good value, then you can take that and go, wow, it's a double whammy.
Yeah.
My business is going to pay for it. It's going to help me with my accumulation of staff. Yep. It's going to help me with my personal accumulation of wealth and property. And it's going to be tax effective in a self-managed super fund. Yep. Tick, 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 bang.
Perfect.
Good, holistic, macro, integrated advice.
Yep.
And I think absolutely what you asked was just such a critical question. You've got to be able to look at it objectively like that. Otherwise, you lease it back to your business and your super's paying for the business premises, but you're sitting on a lemon that's not going to make any money.
Yes.
So,
yes,
good question. I'm gonna fire one back at you, okay? Because the beauty of this particular topic, whilst you're the CEO of the business, and I love that you're the CEO of the business, not because of all the good things, but because you've experienced a lot of what we promote, what we believe in. And one of those particular things, which I'm grateful I got to be on the journey for, is around self-managed super. Like you've done it.
Yep.
You've been in it. Yep. You've embodied it. What are some of your biggest insights? What are some of your biggest loves? What are you proud of? Because I think it was back well before we got together in this business. I think it was probably maybe 7 or 8 years ago. I was in my just turned sort of 30, and I was actually your financial planner.
Time ago.
I was your financial planner, and you were like, we went on this super fun thing together, which was really cool. So I think it goes back a long time. What are your biggest insights, learnings?
Great question. Look, obviously it was very foreign to me back then, and thank God you were my advisor, because I certainly wouldn't be where I am now. In terms of both the SMSF and the personal investments. But I would say it was like what I said at the beginning. I was a bit worried. I was always very risk aware. I was not very much an investor. I didn't have that mindset. I grew up a lot in that scarcity kind of mindset. So for me, it was like, okay, we can do this right now. Like we can actually execute this right now, and it will impact none of our lifestyle at all, because this super is over here and our cash flow is over here. But at that point, I don't think we'd had kids and we were living quite a, fun lifestyle, going out and doing all those things. So for me, that was really cool to first trial that in that space. And then buying the property was really quite easy. Obviously, I connected with someone who I trusted in terms of being a buyer's agent, did that, experienced that part, got a good property. It was done very, very simply. The lending was sorted by the broker. That little trilogy came together beautifully. Yep. I found it all very easy. And I started to realize, okay, this isn't as hard as what I thought. You obviously did the whole setup for me and did everything from that perspective. So I just found it super simple. But then when I looked at the property after a couple of years and saw the growth in there, I went, hang on, it's obviously self-servicing, right? So in terms of the rent that comes in, the expenses that go out, you're still contributing through your own contributions, etc. But the capital growth of the property then was like something I hadn't really thought of.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, I want it to self-service. I don't want to put more money in. I want it to sit there. But then when I saw the growth, I'm like, I've just made 200 grand on top of my super that would never have been there before. Yeah. And it was like a light bulb moment where I went, that's the point.
Yeah.
It's not to self-service, So I guess that's my little story, and what I found to be like enlightening that I didn't realize I needed at the time was the capital growth part.
Yeah, because I don't want to talk about your personal affairs or your numbers, but to your point, you sit there and you go, if I had have just kept it in a normal industry fund, the normal industry fund, very low cost, but averaging out at 10% per annum over a 10-year trajectory. If I had have kept it there, what the number would be right now. And then you sit there and you go, well, what I did is I deployed the trilogy like you just said, and now I've gone way above that. And again, you got the right people. You didn't
Yes.
try and do it all yourself.
Yes.
You took it seriously.
Yeah, yeah.
You made sure you dot your I's, you crossed your T's. You made sure you took responsibility. I think that's a big thing.
Yep.
But you got the people to get the right advice, etc. So I think that's awesome. If I'm a business owner or I'm I'm an employee right now and I've got a bit of money in super and I'm diligent with it and I love property and I want to keep making money on my super, what do you think we need to talk about in terms of like making the next steps kind of really simple? Because there is a way to simplify this. It doesn't have to be turned into this big thing and that gets sat on for years and years and years and bounced around. And what do you think is important?
Look, it's a good question, and I think you're probably going to see things come up on your Facebook and your Instagram. They're going to advertise things. They're going to say minimum of this you can buy in your super. If you got this, you can do this in your super. I wouldn't listen to any of that because I think it's all just rhetoric, to be honest, and it's risky. Personally, if you are starting out in this space and you don't really know where to start or you don't know what to do, like I said, get the right people to advise you, because we do have people come in all day, every day that say, this is my situation, this is how much money I've got in, this is what I do for a living, these are my opportunities, these are my limitations, what should I do? And we will say no to self-managed super funds to them, okay? But we will also say yes to many, right? So I would first always put down that basic information, get your ducks in a row, get the advice from somebody that knows what they're doing and that cares. Ideally, someone that is actually an advisory firm, like a financial planning firm and an accounting firm, and does the property game. But if it's an accountant, make sure they know self-managed super funds back to front, because there are specialists. You're one of them. Kurt in the business, another. Greg's another one. We've got them in the business. Some accounting firms do not, and they shouldn't claim to be, right? So it is a different beast. There's a whole lot of things that could happen. So in my opinion, I would always get advice. That's what I would say.
Yeah. And I think you just said something that has been prevalent lately is you might not be ready.
Exactly.
You might be a year away.
Yeah.
You might be 2 years away.
But you need the plan on how to get there.
Exactly. And I think that's something I'm proud of. Like one of our main guys in the firm, Greg, who's specialised in this space, similar to me, Kurt, etc., for a very long time. And we actually said to him, we said, where's this SMSF up to? And he goes, it's not ready to be executed on right now, but it will be in 6 to 9 months. We're just taking into consideration some particular things, just like what we spoke about today, which was quite exciting about, if you haven't contributed into super for X amount of years, bringing that forward into 1 year to put a large chunk of money into super to get a huge tax benefit or tax return, right? We spoke about that. And once that's done, to get out of a large chunk of tax, then they're ready for super. So sometimes it's not necessarily the plan to immediately execute. It's sometimes the plan before the plan, which still gives you the passion over super. It still gives you, it's exciting, and it's still moving your wealth so much faster than sitting there dormant and doing not knowing for 10 years.
Exactly. Yeah. So look, the other option is we do have a little starter checklist. Obviously, there are massive variables like we've talked about. Yep. So it is just to get an idea as to where you might sit and where you might be in this journey. So we can release that as well to people if they're interested in finding out that information. I think it's a good checklist. Like it does cover a lot of bases.
And we spent a lot of time and energy in doing that as well. And the beauty of what we did in terms of that intellectual property is it wasn't just us creating it. Correct. Like we literally had
a working party.
Around a board table. We had the buyer's agent. Based on buyer limits and thresholds around Australia to make the most money on property. We had the broker, SMSF specialist sitting in the room. We had ourselves, the financial planner, the accountant. We had all of us. And we built out this profile
over multiple meetings. Like it was a lengthy process.
Exactly like where to fit, the income limits, the contributions, the money in soup, the whole piece.
When you can self-direct versus when you need financial planning, etc.
So I think if you're needing clarity, absolutely. Like you said before, just drop your position. Just go, I've got X amount in super, my partner's got X amount in super, or my partners have got X amount in super. However, because members, you can have multiple members in a fund.
Right, I thought you were going somewhere else.
No, I was not talking about multiple spouses, right? We're not in Egypt right now. No, just I've got clients that have 4 or 5.
We don't judge. We do not judge. That's okay.
Mate, you're always judging. Right. Okay, the point is, yes, if you want clarity around that, absolutely. Reach out, drop us a line, and we can kind of work on that profile and give you some direction.